Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's complete. Another touchdown!
Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Left wing for three. He got it again!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome back in. Hour number 2 off and running here on Cougar Sports Saturday. Matt Baiamonte's enjoying Hawaii. Matt's off living the high life in the islands of Hawaii. So just me solo here at the Ultimate Sports Bash. And just to describe what I'm seeing, it's pretty awesome. I'm seeing a dunk team just make all these epic dunks, and then over my left shoulder there's a wrestling ring, and me and Stone, our remote tech here, we're going to probably go into the ring here pretty soon and throw down. Kalani Sitake, speaking of wrestling, I bring that up because at Big 12 Media Days, Kalani was talking about how he and Hans Olsen wrestled. Hans gave him the suplex when Kalani wasn't expecting it, and that was one of the best quotes from Big 12 Media Day. You can only just expect that from Hans. Hans Olsen holding it down, giving Kalani the suplex. Can you imagine that? Great stuff. But I had a great week this at Big 12 Media Day in Vegas. And, you know, one of the big storylines down in Vegas was the quarterback position for BYU, because I think a lot of the reason BYU is the preseason 13th place team out of a 16-team Big 12 is because of the uncertainty at quarterback. And if you were to believe the College Football 25 video game, we got a leak of the ratings for BYU quarterbacks. Gary Bohannon would be your starter. He's 79 overall on the game. But BYU still going to have that battle go into fall camp. And the top two guys right now are Jake Retzlaff and Gary Bohannon. But the thing is that I just found notable from Kalani's commentary to many of the media, and there was over 500 media members assembled at Big 12 Media Day over the course of those 2 days down at Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. He consistently always mentioned McKay Hillstead, the transfer from Utah State, and Trayson Bourget from Western Michigan, making it clear, and we've talked about it a lot on this show, but just making it clear to everyone that he's got 4 quarterbacks that he could start and who have FBS starts in their career. And by having that experience in the quarterback unit, and no one's a decisive favorite by any stretch, it's not unreasonable to think that any one of those guys could play at any given point this season, because that game in Week 1 against Southern Illinois, 7 weeks from today, in LaVell Edwards Stadium, whoever's taking that first snap, you better look good, because if you're struggling, then I don't think there's going to be a lack of they're not going to be scared to, I think, go to the next guy, because Kalani has made it clear he has 4 quarterbacks that he believes in. And I thought that was a noteworthy comment coming out of Big 12 Media Days. Obviously, you would like to have a head and shoulders clear-cut favorite. Jaron Hall would be someone like Zach Wilson. You would love to have that type of guy. Jaron was actually here yesterday at the Ultimate Sports Bash, which was pretty cool to see. But they don't have that this year. They got to find that guy. And who could be that for BYU? I think any one of them could. You know, Gary Bohannon is interesting to me, and he had a panel here at the Ultimate Sports Bash yesterday. Him, Tyler Batty, Connor Pay, Chase Roberts, Ben Bywater are all speaking in a panel. Bohannon was asked, how the BYU experience has been to this point, and has it been everything he'd hoped for? And I'm paraphrasing here, but he just said, all the stigma about BYU is wrong. He says he loves it at BYU. He's almost like he loves the place and wishes he could have been here sooner. He's really embraced BYU. And Bohannon has great leadership qualities. That's always been kind of the calling card for him when he was at Baylor and when he was at USF. Dave Aranda at Baylor, the head coach of the Bears, basically because of how much respect he had for Gary Bohannon as a leader, told him who the starter was going to be in the fall of 2022 to give him a chance to go into the portal and find a new spot. That's how well respected Bohannon is. And he's going to have the respect of players in the locker room. But there's still just that massive question about his shoulder. And I look at spring for Gary Bohannon as an incomplete grade. I'm going in with an open mind on him in fall camp. I thought by the end of spring ball, I thought he was the best quarterback at the final week of spring, just that final week. I thought some of his deep passes it gave you confidence that arm strength is coming back for him. But still, I got to see it more consistently from him, and he hasn't taken a hit in almost 2 years. And so I just have some real questions about Bohannon and still kind of having a little bit of an adjustment of the offense, whereas Jake Retzlaff, he's got a full year under Aaron Roderick's offense, and people forget now because of the mistakes that Jake made in those 4 starts as BYU's quarterback. But when they signed him not this past January, but the year prior in 2023, there was a feeling that Jake Retzlaff was being signed to be the future quarterback one for BYU. And I think Aaron Roderick feels that he absolutely can be a QB1 for this program. I mean, that's one of the reasons why he stepped in and was the starter last year, and they rolled with him even despite the struggles. They continued to move forward with him. And there were other quarterbacks that were banged up, but they believe in Jake Retzlaff, and they think that he can be someone that can be very successful for BYU this season and get them to the postseason. So those 2 guys are going to be the perceived top guys, but I really am fascinated by McKay Hillstead and to a lesser extent Trayson Bourguet. Bourguet I saw in spring ball, and I liked what he did. Trayson Bourguet comes in from Western Michigan, and he just wanted to be at BYU. He enrolled at the school and told Aaron Roderick, I'm enrolled, and then he makes the announcement. He hopped on our airwaves the weekend he enrolled, and he just wanted an opportunity to be a part of the BYU football program, and he got that, and now he's on scholarship for this BYU football program, and he throws a good ball, but I feel like he's not as dynamic of an athlete to me as McKay Hillstead, and that's where the intrigue comes with McKay Hillstead, who comes in from Utah State. Hillstead started in 4 games last season for the Aggies. He's a post-spring addition, so he didn't compete in spring ball for BYU this past March. But, man, he's got so much athleticism and dynamic playmaking ability. I think the biggest knock on him is that he's only 5'10". If McKay Hillstead was a quarterback that was 6'1", 6'2", he would have had a lot more interest coming out of Skyridge High School down in Lehigh. You saw the interest that he got in the transfer portal. I mean, he had SEC, Big 10, Big 12 programs pursuing him. Utah wanted him. He ends up at BYU. And I got to think, too, that one of the reasons that Aaron Roderick and Kalani got McKay Hillstead to BYU was the promise of getting a real opportunity to compete for that job. I mean, because, again, Hillstead had opportunities, and yes, it's close to home, but that wasn't the deciding factor. He wants a chance to play this year, and I look at him as someone that's got the potential to be the starter for BYU at some point this season. But as of right now, coming out of Big 12 Media Day, my pecking order would be Retzlaff 1, I'd put Bohannon 2, I'd put maybe 3A, 3B, I'd put Hillstead, Bourguet. I got to give Bourguet a little bit of an upper hand because he actually did go through spring and he looked good. But McKay Hillstead's the ultimate wild card, and he's going to be one of the most intriguing players to me to watch in fall camp, which gets going 18 days from now. How crazy is that? Football season is just around the corner. NFL teams are having rookies report today. The Baltimore Ravens are. BYU is going to get fall camp going July 31st. Players will report July 30th. So football's here, and it's time to get it rolling here, and we're going to learn a lot about this team. I feel like I'm fascinated to see in that opening week, there's the first handful of practices where you don't have the pads and it's just shells pretty much. How many first-team reps are being allocated to Hillstead and Bourguet, if at all? It's a tough deal to distribute first-team reps to 4 guys. So that first week's going to tell us a lot. And if any of them can get any sort of first-team opportunities, I think that's noteworthy in fall camp because, this past March and spring, they were pretty decisive, the coaching staff was, on saying Bohannon, Retzlaff, they're taking all the first-team reps, and that's that. Has Bourguet done enough to get into that first-team rep conversation? Has McKay Hillstead in PRPs, in summer workouts, has he done enough to say, let's give him a look and see what he can do with the first-team offense, I think it's worth a shot. You got to know. You got to have a real strong background and intel to say this guy could translate to games on Saturdays, because BYU's got one of the toughest schedules in college football. And you better be feeling like you've got the confidence at that quarterback unit to dig into your depth if you need to, even if it's just injury-based. Even if Jake Retzlaff or Bohannon, who emerges as a starter, whoever it ends up being, if they're having success but then they get hurt, you got to turn to the next guy. And you got to have confidence in those players, and you got to have a real understanding and confidence that what they can be in these games. You already know what Retzlaff can do in flashes. I mean, there were moments last year in that Oklahoma and Oklahoma State game where that offense looked really good, and you were seeing the wide zone blocking schemes for the ground attack. And it was really working well. I thought the offensive line was playing better in those games, but then there were other stretches where the mistakes were just catastrophic for Jake, and he's got to live with that. He's got a chance to rewrite, that narrative when it comes to him for BYU football. We're here again at the Ultimate Sports Bash, Sandy, Utah. And so I think that's a former BYU basketball player I'm seeing. I think Braden Shaw, I think. I'm not sure on that. A lot of former players rolling in here through the Mountain America Expo Center here in Sandy. BYU, Utah, Weber State, Utah State, UVU's here. The Utah Warriors are here. Utah Grizzlies. I mean, yeah, it's pretty cool. Sadly, is there any Utah Jazz or Utah Hockey Club representation here? We'll check on that. But it's been a lot of fun here at the Ultimate Sports Bash here in Sandy. So stop on by, and we can talk some BYU football and basketball here today and get you ready for the upcoming football season. Let's take a timeout. On the other side, we'll get into more with this BYU football team and some of the takeaways from Big 12 Media Day next here on Cougar Sports Saturday.